Today, we're going to set the book aside, and we're going to use this day as this meeting as a way to just express our feelings about our lost member, Mary. Although I call her lost, she's now probably in a much better place than any of us are. So there's that. I have the Autumn Gospel people wanted us to transcribe this meeting. And so I told them, well, I will record it. And I will also have the Zoom AI assistant do a transcription for us. So as we're going around telling our stories, at the beginning, just say who you are. And that way the assistant won't get confused. Because I get transcriptions of all of the meetings. And sometimes it's really hilarious to see who's been playing, who's been assigned what was said because it was wrong. But I think if we say our names first, it'll work. Also, I do appreciate Mother Ashley being with us. I think that as we do this, we may need a little bit of spiritual help. So I do appreciate that. And Ashley has some additional information that she would like to give. So
AI assistant, this is Reverend Ashley speaking. I thought that I would tell you a little bit about the morning of Mary's death, and I have some details that I think will bring you comfort. So Mary's been busily tackling her bucket list items over the last little while. So, she's been traveling, she's been seeing family, and honestly, from at least my perspective, she looked as vigorous as ever and was as spunky as ever also. But last week she started to experience more pain. And
pain.
I don't really know. She just said she was experiencing pain. And you all know she had a rare form of cancer. Okay. So she was experiencing pain associated with that. She was on hospice care, which of course just means treatment was no longer geared toward recovery, but toward pain management and comfort. So when her pain levels increased, her hospice care team increased the amount of morphine that she was receiving in response. Mary had originally told me that she would be attending the conference on Saturday, which I knew would be a stretch. It was a long day, but she said maybe she would come for a short portion of it. And then I thought I might see her on Sunday. I did not see her on Saturday. She did not come for either service on Sunday. So I reached out to her on Sunday, but I was not able to make contact with her. Later, I found out that she just had a really difficult day on Sunday, was in quite significant pain, had a bad day. Her daughter, Catherine, had arranged with her mother. So Mary was supposed to answer her phone always, all the time. Even if she were in the shower, the phone needed to be nearby, she was supposed to answer, because the signal between them was that if Mary did not answer, something was wrong. And Mary always picked up. So what happened is Catherine, her daughter, had made contact with her on Sunday. That's why we know she had a bad day. But Monday morning she called and she did not get Mary, which was the signal to go and check. And her daughter went to check on her and found that she had passed. But here are the details that I think will bring a smile to your face and comfort to your heart. When Catherine found Mary, Mary was in her bed with her dog and her cat sleeping right on top of her. Oh. She had a mug of coffee, half full, on the bedside table, still warm. And she had a coffee pot percolating on the stove, still keeping warm. So I think she woke up, put a pot of coffee on, probably thought she'd go back for a second cup because it was still on warm, brought her mug of coffee to bed, crawled back in bed with her beloved pets, snuggled up with them, drank half of that coffee, dozed off, and probably went to sleep. So I hope that brings some comfort. It's always so difficult to love somebody, or I mean, to lose somebody that we love, but if there can be any comfort, it might be in knowing that she passed on away on her own terms. She still had all that vigor and spark inside of her. She was at home. She, I don't know, she died kind of how she lived, just on her own and in her own way. And, Mary had one of those larger than life personalities. So it's really hard for me to envision a Sunday and know that she's not with us anymore, because as
Yeah.
you all know, when Mary was somewhere, you knew she was there. Yeah, she was never a quiet one off in the corner. She made a big impression, and so I
It was
feel,
present.
yeah,
all
I
the
think her absence will be noted and felt.
It will.
And so that's what we're here today to do, is just to talk about Mary and to celebrate Mary, but also it's okay to grieve Mary and to feel whatever we feel about Mary. And I'm here mostly to listen because I want to hear your stories, but I'm also here to support if you need me or if I can.
Thank you, Ashley. We'll just kind of do a round table, if that's all right, and try and keep this a little bit organized. I'd like to start out. And by the way, AI assistant, my name is Don Wood.
What's this AI assistant business?
AI is transcribing the meeting so others can read it later, but they won't know who's speaking if we don't identify ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not omniscient yet. Okay. Actually, Mary, among other people, is one of the people who helped form me into an Episcopalian. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I was baptized into the Episcopal Church in 1995. And Leslie had been going down to the cathedral on Wednesday morning. He wasn't attending up here in Park City for her own reasons. But people up here were trying to fellowship her and get her to come to the services up here at that same time. And there was a group that had formed. I don't think it was a formal group, but it consisted of Jim and Shelley Jennings. For those of you who may have known them, Dale and I don't remember his name, the Milligans. And I'm thinking there was somebody else. There was somebody else that could have, well, the McEntires. At that time, Mary was married to her husband. So the McEntires. And we had dinner at each other's homes each month. And Mary was very, very helpful for me trying to understand the transition that I was going through into the Episcopal Church. All of you were, by the way, all of the people in that group. And she was just very helpful because I didn't know a lot about a liturgical church or anything like that, but with her help, I was able to understand. She formed me into a reasonable Episcopalian. So there was that. Another experience that I had with Mary, and this was back in the 2000, the year of 2000, or 2001, maybe not 2001, 2021, during the pandemic, when we were having coffee hour over Zoom. Do some of you remember that, the Zoom coffee hour? And Leslie and I had joined in a little bit early, and Charles and Mary were in this intense discussion. And, and they saw who came on, and Mary pointed at her computer like that and said, "He can do it." And what they were talking about, there was an opening in the diocesan council for a Salt Lake region representative. And they were talking about if there was anyone in St. Luke's that could or would do that. And and so Charles said, "Well, Don, here's what we're talking about, and I don't know whether you want to do it or not." And I said, "Well, why don't you let us go through the Zoom coffee hour and let my mind work on that." And after the Zoom coffee hour, being the great atheist that I was at the time, God told me that I should do it. And I'm not joking. And so I said that I would. And again, that literally changed my life. That literally changed my spiritual life. But it was because Mary pointed at me and said, "Don can do it." I think she said that because she didn't want to do it. Don can do it. And then the other one, just one last one. As many of you may remember, Mary was part of the search committee that was looking for our new bishop. And when they had selected the candidates, there were 3 candidates, and they had the candidates speak at 3 different locations in the diocese, and answer questions and tell about themselves and what they thought they could do for us. And Mary and I drove down to St. James together, which was where it was being held in Salt Lake. And there were 3, I mentioned there were 3 candidates. There were 2 women and a man. And in our session, there were several breakout sessions, and in our sessions, the man spoke first and told what he thought he was going to do and why he should be our bishop and all of that. Mary and I looked at each other and said, "He's not the guy."
You were right. I was there too, and you were right.
And then there was a woman from Texas that was good. That was good, but Mary and I looked at each other and we kind of shook our heads. And then not yet bishop, but Bishop Beagle got up, and it was like the Spirit filled the entire room. And Mary and I looked at each other and simultaneously, I think we said, "She's our next bishop." And then we attended we were both delegates, convention delegates, which also made us elector delegates for the bishop. And we went to the election. And before we went, Leslie asked me, "Well, how long do you think that's going to take?" And I said, "Well, there are 3 candidates, so there can be at least 2 and maybe more rounds of voting." Well, there was 1 round of voting.
Yeah.
She got the overwhelming majority of votes, both from the lay delegates and from the clergy. And it was over. It was done.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget when Bishop Hayashi announced who had won the election, the absolute chaotic excitement and yelling and finally Bishop Hayashi said, well, isn't somebody supposed to be ringing a bell? Started ringing.
We were all terrified of the male candidate. We were all happy.
Oh, yeah, he was scary. But anyway, Mary has been a real part of my formation as an Episcopalian, and I will always hold that in great esteem, and I truly appreciate her.
All right, well, Mary is
Your
always,
name?
oh, sorry, Lindsay here. Mary has always been a close friend of mine. And there are two sides of Mary that I've always been so impressed with and that I've really loved. The second one, due in a second, and that was the most astounding one to me. But the first, I was always just so amazed by her vast knowledge of virtually everything. The Bible, religion, politics, international relations, books. I mean, you could go on and on. She just knew so much about everything. And that was really impressive. The second, which is the most moving to me and which I really loved, was her sense of humor, and her wit. And she just filled a room with that. Even if she was making a statement that was somewhat serious, she'd always match it with something that was like funny and laughter. And I was just thinking a minute ago, Mary was a merry person and she brought that to everything. And it was that abundance of that quality that to me really stood out with her. And I hadn't been to Beer and BS for a few months because of the migraines. They'd always hit me in the morning, especially. So I couldn't make that morning session. And for a few months, I also wasn't part of Beer and BS for the same reasons. So I didn't even know that she had a cancer diagnosis. So I thought she had a surgery, possibly two. That was about it. So when I saw that headline in the email, maybe like at least a few people, I was like, what? I was just stunned and surprised. And, I know she will always hold a special place in my heart, and I think all of you. And, I've said a number of prayers in the past few days for her. And somebody had said, I wish I'd spent more time with her. And that really hit the nail. I don't want to use that description, but, it was just so right on. We had so many more years to spend with her, and, it just happened much too soon. And that sort of says it for me. I mean, the laughter was really just that sense of humor was so invasive and contagious. And, she'd come in a room and, you just smiled, there was Mary again. So I know she will live on with all of us. And that's the main thing, to just remember the good things, good memories. So.
I'm Jim Jennings. Mary has been a friend for years. What I liked about her most, besides her intelligence, was that she was always doing something for other people. All the time. Thank you. Mike Andrews. I met Mary some 30 some odd years ago when she walked into the office of my high school principalship after I had suspended her daughter for 3 days. Cut flats and got on a joyride to Heba to get ice cream. Well, she came in and I thought this is going to be was gonna be a go-to, but it quickly became obvious that the go-to was gonna be at her daughter. And, from that day forward, we got along famously. And I would observe for you that I have never met anyone quite so literate or well-read
Yeah, right.
as Mary. And her good liberal democratic spirit
Yeah.
lives on in my heart.
Yeah.
And she was just a person who brought knowledge, patience, love, and this group will never be the same, with all due respect to all of you.
Mhm.
She made this group hum like a whirling machine. I loved her. She was a good person.
No.
So I'm in the category, oh, I'm John Snyder. I'm in the, it's an interesting category because Cindy and I have been here for probably over 20, certainly over 20 years. But we sang in the choir. So I never knew Mary until we started coming to Beer and BS, which is an interesting social exercise, right? Because those of us in the choir don't have any idea who's in the congregation, unless we mix, right, in some way. Anyway, so my I don't have the knowledge that all of you have about Mary, but my knowledge is with respect to Beer and BS, and in that case, I see Mary as the one in the corner with the mask on. Because, right, I didn't know, like Lindsay, I didn't know that she was ill. I think maybe Cindy said something,
Yeah.
but I didn't know what it was. But I would agree with Mike. She was the one who seemed to have read everything, and she was always prepared to put a zinger into the conversation. So I think that would be my offering. I didn't know her like you did, but yet it's appreciated to contribute to the conversations that we have here with the NBS.
And I would just add, a lot of people ask what beer and BS is. Well, if you were dumb enough to say something untoward, you found out what BS was.
She wasn't shy, was she?
Wasn't Bible study.
Oh, it could have been.
That's right, BS is not Bible study. What?
Yes, Mike McFadden, and I first met Mary when we moved in and caused a big ruckus next to her house while we were building for about 2 years. But they were very welcoming and all, and it was a nice way to meet our immediate neighbors and anyhow, after the split, I kind of lost track of Mary for a good time until I came back here to St. Luke's and then Beer and BS. And so I would just agree with the things that have been said. Mary was always the one who could come up with some really thought-provoking books and some that would lead us into all kinds of new directions. So it's just much appreciated. Very, just a kind lady.
Okay, Michelle, and I've only known Mary for a little over 2 years because I'm new to the congregation. But shortly after I started coming here, I started coming to Beer and BS. And I can remember either the first or second time, and she was sitting there and talking, and I'm for some reason, mentioned I was new here, and so glad that I found you guys because I knew you were my people. You were reading the Christian nationalist book. And afterwards, she came up to me and she just said, you belong here.
Mhm.
And as a new person to a
Mhm.
group of people that had been together for years,
Mhm.
and also to a new congregation, it was a big hug.
Mhm.
And I've gotten to know her also. My husband doesn't attend church, supports, but doesn't attend. And she had, I think Paul got us all tickets to see
Mhm.
one of the symphonies at St. Mary's, and she had us all over for dinner.
Oh, yeah.
And she was so welcoming to everyone, but especially to my husband. And
Mhm.
he remembers her too from that one one evening. It was a beautiful evening. So I was so glad that I was able to get to know her, because she, again, as everyone said, a wealth of knowledge, but knowledge that was intertwined with love. Like, she wasn't just spouting facts and figures, she was talking about life.
Mhm.
I will miss her.
Gail McBride. And like Mike, my first introduction to Mary was through school. And, I started thinking about this today and teaching semester classes, I saw hundreds of kids a year and so many
Where was
parents at the high school. Okay. But when I met Mary, I'll never forget Mary. She was this strong, opinionated and woman that also was so non-offensive. And that's a difficult thing to pull off sometimes. And then when I came to St. Luke's, I saw that same person and she was so authentic. You never had to guess what she was thinking. She could disagree with everybody in the room and still do it in a way that was not offensive. And she always made me giggle because of the way she would present something. She was very, very unique. Very unique. I'll miss her.
I'm Linda. I can't say how extraordinary I think she is. And authentic. She didn't say anything that was really frivolous. And she made us all have to sit up and think about what we were saying. I mean, you wouldn't say something stupid in front of her. No, but I just can't imagine the world without her. No big loss.
So true.
AI assistant, that was Linda.
Oh.
And this is Bob Lutz, or Babalucci, as it's called. Don Babalucci, my Italian friend, Don Babbo. I'm gonna start with something I wrote to Mary just before we were gonna read, or we had just started reading Theo of Golden. And she had just made some comments or something to me at the Beer and BS or something, and I thought I better, follow up on it. Just a couple of phrases here, and then I'm going to give you her response, okay? My thoughts on Theo of Golden. We look forward to hearing your wisdom about Theo of Golden, Mary. It's an amazing read, an allegory on goodness, better to give than to receive, etc. Only book I've ever read that by page 68, you already don't have a hero, a nemesis, or some disturbing evil. A plethora of life vignettes portraying and acknowledging the mix of sadness and joy that everyone near it faces daily. And yes, what about the perceptive artist who skillfully portrayed each sojourner on the back wall of Chef's coffee shop? An interesting, fascinating read indeed. Eagerly looking forward to discovering the raison d'etre
of Mr. Theo that apparently is revealed at the end of the book. We didn't know where we were going with this, and it is an amazing book. Mary's response the next day. Obviously, I don't check my email as often as many people. I was also thoroughly captivated by Theo and Golden, so much so that I finished the entire book and ordered copies of for my older sister and for my daughter. This is the first time in 20 years that I have been able to put my primitive seminary knowledge of Hebrew and Greek to good use. With all the troubles in the world, I relished the goodness, kindness, and love shown by Theo. Also, there's another thing that I had said in that same thing. We were talking about her upcoming treatments and diagnoses. And she had at that time decided, I think, not to forego more chemo and things because they weren't working. They were very difficult for her. And she said, my kids have told me they prefer me being on support of Big Pharma now rather than leaving more to them after my death. Not everyone is this lucky. Looking forward to tomorrow to beer and BS. So what we have come to know and love about Mary au contraire. I called her that and she got me for it. She was wise, insightful, deep, faithful, strong and courageous in the face of her own learned destiny, succinct, sweetly caustic, feisty, probably a pain in the neck to her enemies if she had any, humorous and a quick wit. If anybody's been to her house, you see the sign outside. Dogs welcome, humans tolerated. She spoke with her eyes, glances. If looks could kill, they probably would have if she had had any enemies. Eye to eye, she always looked you in the eye when she spoke. And that is really, and that gets back to Theo Golden. If you think about every image, it's the eyes that caught everybody's attention. She's kind, loving, caring, generous, consoling, probably a chaplain's chaplain. I never had her be a chaplain for us, but I think, she was the one that could just say the words and make you feel that everything is okay wherever you were. Her legacy will live on as she was part of our lives, and her work is not done. We will miss her. And it brought to me the last lines of Robert Frost, stopping by woods on a snowy eve. And give me a few seconds to read it. It's not long. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year, he gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweet of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep. Miles to go before I sleep. She's not done. She's with us. Mary.
Of Brad, and really I've only been here a short time, 11 years compared to a lot of other people, a short time. But I think Mary was the first person to introduce herself to me at the chapel, and usually at the chapel, nobody can get away without, meeting other people. But I never did, and I believe Mary went to divinity school, but didn't get ordained, and I don't know anything about her interest in. I'm somewhat interested in, but knew nothing about her family or I knew she was brought up down south. She always brought that up.
Louisiana. She's from Louisiana.
So this is Barry. This story will raise your eyebrows a little bit, especially yours, Ashley.
Excited now.
And it's not my story, it's my wife's, and she brought it up twice this last week. And she said, I can never remember the time that Mary was madder than a hell. You won't believe how mad she was. And you know who she was mad at? Father Bob.
Father Bob.
Father Bob. And why was she mad at him? I'll tell you why. She wanted a divorce and she wanted out of it. And Father Bob was all over her trying to save the marriage. And she didn't want to hear it. So I've heard that story twice from my wife this week. You can get mad, I guess.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Mary has the ability to, she's like the velvet hammer.
It's a good analogy.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, when it's my turn, I'll tell you a story about.
I was
being
gonna-
in-
oh, she was gonna-
And then you can,
yeah,
Suzanne.
Well, I've known Mary for almost 25 years. I got to know her first of all in Autumn Gospel. And Autumn Gospel has a unique little thing that we do in that we share with each other any problems we have, any heartbreak we have, any gladness we have, joy we have. We kind of share with each other because it's such a special group. And I've been in it forever. What is said there stays there. And that's so reassuring because sometimes we have difficulties and they seem to be lifted when you share with those who love you and they talk to you. But I've known Mary a long, long, long time, and she has been such a dear friend of mine. I'll just share one little story. Because it's Mary. My youngest son suffered a cardiac arrest some 8 years ago, I guess it was. 5, maybe 6 years ago. And needless to say, I was beyond devastated. I was just gone. And Father Charles talked to me and talked to me and talked to me. And then before I knew it, Mary was on my doorstep. And she was with me for 3 weeks. She would bring me things to read. She would just be there. And she planned my funeral service for him. I just couldn't do any of that. But nobody asked her to do anything. She was just Mary. And she's been there for me with other situations. But she'll be missed. But I do think she's in a much better place.
Just one comment that you make you think of, and that is that people I've known that were in so much pain, and in her case, especially at the end, you always feel they've gone to a better place, a more peaceful place, a place without pain. And that can certainly make us feel a little better now about where she is.
Well, I met Mary in 2015, long before I was ever a priest here, at a time where I was experiencing what you would call spiritual unrest. I knew I was being called to something. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if it was priesthood. I didn't know if I was supposed to be a deacon. I didn't know if I was supposed to do something else entirely. But I felt this desire to do something. And I was trying to figure out what it was. And I don't remember who invited me to a meeting of an organization called Community of Hope. But
Oh, yeah.
Community of Hope was an organization that Mary belonged to, and they would do training they would train people in pastoral care, and then they would place volunteers in different parts of the community to practice that care. So I went to the meeting. That's where I met Mary, and Mary was very knowledgeable and very passionate about pastoral care because, of course, she had been a chaplain. And you're right, she did go to divinity school, and with the original intent of going through the process to become a priest, and ultimately decided not to, because she had a passion for lay ministry, and she really believed in uplifting that and stepping into that. So she consciously chose not to pursue ordination, but very much valued her education. And that would come out in this group. She would speak and she would teach. And I remember after I kind of got to know her, she was like, well, you should be a chaplain. She wanted me to be a chaplain so badly. She wanted me to be a chaplain because that was her passion. And so what's funny is eventually I did become a chaplain. And I was over at St. Mark's Hospital, at Primary Children's Hospital. And when I was working at St. Mark's Hospital, I would see Mary every Friday because she would volunteer. So then I knew her there as well. But one funny little story about Mary. She, as I said, she had a passion for lay ministry. And so she would kind of be like, you don't need to become a priest. You don't need to become a priest. And then there was this one day where, and I wasn't even sure that I wanted to become a priest, but there was one day we were down at the Cathedral of St. Mark's, and I went outside to my car, or no, I went across the street to a coffee shop to grab something. Anyway, a person I did not know, had never seen, approached me. And they said, excuse me, are you a priest? And I said, I'm not a priest, but we're right across the street from a cathedral. So if you need a priest, we can walk over there and we can find one. Do you need one? She said, oh, I don't need a priest. I said, well, then why are you asking for a priest? And she said, I'm not asking for a priest. I was wondering if you were a priest. I said, I'm not. Why are you wondering that? Is it because I'm wearing this cross? And then she said, no, I must just be hearing the call in you. And she walked away. So when I went, she said, I must just be hearing the call in you. And then she walked away.
Wow.
That felt like an answer to me in that moment. I felt all spooky. And I went inside and I shared it with the group. And Mary said, okay, fine. You can become a priest. Such a good humor. So we knew each other, before I came here. But after coming here, my appreciation of her further deepened, and my love grew for her because I saw her in all of her complexity. So we had, when Pam Archbold was going through her discernment process, I needed to form a committee for her. And Dawn was on that committee, but I put Mary as the chair of that committee because I knew that she had that discerning eye, that she could look into the heart of a person and that she could really lead the group in figuring out, is this person called to do this work or not? And Gail was on it too, so Gail knows Mary through that also. But she's done that for 2 candidates in this parish since I've been here, and I've seen her attention and her care and her love for the people who go through those processes. And then also she's been such a delight to me sometimes, printing off newspaper or magazine articles and leaving them for me to read, or slipping a book into my office and saying, oh, you really need to read this. And we've had long phone conversations about interesting subjects and long email. And she's also been angry at me, very angry at me. And she doesn't hesitate to tell you when she is. And I actually appreciate that. I really do, because you always knew where you stood with Mary. And she always did you the courtesy of telling you where she was, why she was feeling, how she felt. And she came to you directly. And I always appreciated that. So I got to see the full spectrum of Mary and I felt like regardless of where we were, talking about something fun or working through something difficult, there was that mutual respect and that relationship, and that we can come to each other with hard things, and we can sit down together and we can figure it out. And I really appreciated that about Mary, because I always felt like, I don't know, she was just very open and she was very transparent. There was nothing sneaky about Mary. I always knew exactly where Mary was and what she was doing.
She was the living embodiment of our community prayer.
Because if she was struck with something, she would come to you directly and she would tell you, and there was always a way to work that out. And I very much loved that about Mary. And I loved her complexity. I loved that she was many things. And I will miss her very much.
Here's to Mary.
Here's
That
the
she
Mary.
was
Here's the
nice.
Mary.
Yes.
Rising glory.
Rising glory.
Oh, Mary.
Lindsay and I were talking before this meeting started and thought it would be a good idea to start it with a prayer, but I forgot. So I think it would be appropriate to end it with a prayer, and I'd like to ask you to do it, Ashley. But I do have just a couple of other things to say. First of all, in Mary's memory, we need to set up the labyrinth.
Oh.
So for those of you who are capable of helping us with that, I truly appreciate it. Otherwise, I'll do it myself. But there's that. And then Paul, you're catching us right at the very end. Apologize for that.
Speaking of the labyrinth, Mary always wanted to have us have a labyrinth outside of the vestry hall, because there's plenty of space for one.
Yeah.
So that might be something that our church can consider doing for her.
Yes, I think that is a very likely thing in the future. Location, though, I can't speak to because of the permitting and everything
No, but
else. And
she
the place she wanted it is as a high water table. But definitely,
Yeah,
we
I just was thinking, that would be a
something like
wonderful,
that.
beautiful way to honor her.
yes.
Many of our churches in the diocese have a permanent labyrinth outside. Just one other comment about Mary.
I'll just say something.
Yeah, we've got Paul here.
Hi, Paul. I wanted to say how many times in this conversation we've talked in the present about Mary.
Mhm.
And I think we should continue to do that. I had a brother that was very close to me, and he left a message for me one time. And I think of it all the time. Linda, what are you thinking? And we could do that with Mary, because I think most of us know exactly what not exactly, but we know very much what she'd say if we said something ridiculous.
Paul, can you hear me? We can't hear you.
Mute.
Well, he could hear.
How about now?
Now we can, yes.
Yeah, I'm with you by way of Vancouver, Canada, and you've helped me understand the emotion that I felt when I got the message from Don that Mary had passed away. I've been listening to all your stories, and I only got to know, well, she and I did have two social events that we put together to, with folks from Beer and BS, and I got to know her in that way as a fellow organizer. But I was a bit surprised the degree of grief that I felt when I got Don's message. And then I realized that there's a blessing here, because I only basically shared moments sitting next to her. There were times, and your stories helped me understand intuitively how just being with her at a table there's something about that you all have explained about her spirit, about her energy that was powerful and welcoming and captivating. So I just feel very blessed. First of all, that I had a number of meetings with you when I'm there in Park City. And of course, a blessing that I got to know Mary in a few ways that I did that were very influential. So I'm grateful to feel the blessing, feeling sad about the loss of Mary.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
And everyone remember the World Labyrinth Day is Saturday, and that was really important to Mary. Mary was the organizer along with Michelle here for this year's event, and she's just passionate about it. A labyrinth walk that happens at 1 p.m. that's coordinated with the rest of the globe, so everybody's walking at the exact same time.
Well, 1 o'clock at their time zone.
Oh, 1 o'clock at their time zone.
So
Okay, I
it's
see.
walking in the middle of the night, but everyone at 1 o'clock in their time zone is going
Is
to do
walking.
the labyrinth.
So there's a presentation,
So it's for
beforehand, and if you're coming to the quiet day, the quiet day will
Year with
participate in the
it.
labyrinth walk.
And to honor Mary
Yeah,
for ours.
a common walk in
Saturday.
honor of memory, or in memory of Mary.
And there will be someone there, Lisa, who knows a lot. She did it last year too.
Mhm.
And, she knows a lot. She'll talk us through how to walk and a little bit of the history and stuff.
And Bob and Linda and Michelle and Dawn are coming to and Gail are coming to the quiet day, and we'll pause to participate in the labyrinth walk. So just a reminder, there's no reason you can't do both.
It's Saturday though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we move to a prayer, I want to say something a little bit humorous about Mary. She was the hardest person to put a microphone in front of and pick her up. She does not have a good microphone voice. And
Gravelly
we
and low.
struggled. I've struggled for as long as I've been involved with our sound, trying to be able to pick up Mary when she would get in front of a microphone. It didn't matter how close she was to it.
And it's funny.
It's kind of gravelly and low.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And of course, she's so expressive that she's always moving her head all around. And I just, anyway.
It just was not a happening event.
No, but it all worked out in the end, so it was all right. Mary was just an incredible presence with us, and from a beer and BS perspective, as Mike adequately pointed out, we're going to miss her tremendously. I believe that she probably recommended and we accepted about half of the books.
Yeah,
At least.
at least, right?
At least, yeah. Yeah, in fact, the one we're doing now,
What are we doing?
she suggested. So, but you know what, Mike, I'm glad that we did Feel of Golden before we did this.
Yeah.
Yes,
That was
absolutely.
very why.
That one left us feeling really, really good and sad at the end.
And I really take credit for
Yes.
Definitely.
Okay. Mother Ashley, will you give us a prayer? please?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. The Lord be with you.
And all.
And also with you.
Gracious God, we are so grateful to gather as a community mourning the loss of our sister and friend Mary. Lord, she was so important to each of us in our own ways, and we all have different stories to share of her. And she had such an amazing spirit and a presence and a spark inside her. It will be difficult to experience her loss. as the weeks and months ahead unfold. But we are also mindful that she's with you and that the pain that she was experiencing both in body and in spirit leading up to her death is not being felt anymore. And we hope and we believe both that she is now experiencing the peace of being with you. We're grateful that we had time to be with her, that our stories overlapped with her, that the mark she made on us will continue, and that the passion that she had in her life for the various areas of ministry and the work of the church have taken root inside each of us, so that as we lean into our ministries and as we invest in the work that you call us to do, we will fill her with us, and we will recognize her living on in the goings on of this parish and in our shared life of faith. God, I ask you to be with the members present here today who love Mary and who will feel the grief in their own way and in their quiet moments with their families and on their own. Please support them and uplift them. Please help them to know that you are with them, send your spirit to be with them so that they feel the same peace Mary is now feeling. And so that they can trust and know that the resurrection story is real, that death does not have the final word, that all things become new, and that we will see her again. And we ask you to hold this community together in a time of grief and help us to support one another as we share memories, as we feel difficult things, and as we look to a future where Mary may not be physically present with us, but her legacy will live on. Be with us today and in the upcoming weeks as we await to celebrate her with her family at her memorial service. And we are grateful again for our time with her and with one another. In Jesus' name we pray.